friend, Pauline Middleton, has been so gracious to join us to talk about her book, One Woman, Three Men. And I just want to read a quick excerpt from it. Or can a life and relationships change completely between April and July? It can, as Pauline Middleton shows us in a new romance novel that outlines the evolution of a relationship between one woman and several men. The story is based on Middleton's premise that a modern day woman actually needs not one man, but three: one for sex, one for intellectual stimulation, and one to help around the house. With that, it's my pleasure to invite Miss Pauline Middleton on. Pauline, how you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Hi. Thanks for having me, Ted.
Oh, please, please, please. Thanks for just taking the time out. I know you're very busy. You're everywhere. I see you, digitally, I see you everywhere, but I know you've traveled the States, you traveled in different countries, and you're promoting your book. I want to thank our good friends that were able to connect us. And tell us about the modern love premise. Tell us how you came about. Tell us who you are. Just let our listeners know. I'm going to decrease right now so you can increase, and tell us about One Woman, Three Men.
Thank you, Ted. It was a model that I invented for my own life some years back when I had a love life that was really, not working out at all. I had been married and had a daughter with a man, and then we divorced. And then I met this other guy, briefly afterwards, and then I found out that he was cheating on me. So, I was looking at my love life, and I was also looking at the love life of my girlfriends. And I was seeing many things that really didn't match, that many people were quite frustrated or unhappy or not having a partner and not happy about that. And I figured, okay, I think I need to try something else. And then I wanted to create a dating profile because that was, the things you did back then. Still do to some extent, even though Tinder has taken over. But when you create a dating profile on a dating site, there are a lot of questions you need to answer about yourself. You also need to tell about what you want and what you don't want and so on. And I found out that, there were many things I wanted. And it helped me to be more concrete in defining myself when I had to fill out all of these things. But I also knew, that you cannot actually go out and ask to be met on all the areas in your life that you want to, because that's not realistic. So I chose the three most important areas, and that is I like to talk, I like to discuss things, politics, life, love, etc. I also like to have a varied and fun sex life. And sometimes, people think that that's that's more or less evident that both men and women want that, but it's not all men that want it. And then I live in an old house, and I needed help with some of the things because I'm very good at helping somebody, but I'm not very good at finding out how to solve the practical issues. And then, when I was sitting there looking at these three areas, I got the idea, okay, maybe I should get a guy for each area. And then I could find out where things continue to go wrong. And then I had that idea, and I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then I put up a profile saying I'm looking for three men, one to talk to, one for sex, and one for practical stuff. So.
Perfect. Well, I do have some questions for you because I received the soft copy of your book. So I just started to read that and kind of delve into it. So I guess my first question is, how did your friends and family react to the three men model in your life?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, I didn't really tell anybody about it because I wasn't quite sure how I would react. It was somewhat of a daring move for me. The background that I have, it's quite ordinary background, but still, I was like, okay, well, saying that I want a guy for sex, that's like saying, okay, sex is important to me, but how will other people look at me? Will they think I'm a cheap girl, or some of these other negative words that we use whenever women and sex are associated? Or, what will happen? And when I have more than one man, that will also be provocative for a number of people. So I didn't tell anybody. But then I lived with this model for a year and a half. And, I was divorced. So every second weekend, my daughter was with her dad. And that meant that in that period, I could, experiment as much as I wanted. And then I made a diary of all my experiences. And then some years later, I decided to write a book about it. Because each time I brought up some of my experiences, people were really curious. They really wanted to talk about, is there a different way of living your love life than what I'm actually experiencing now? So it was very, it was very different how I treated it in the beginning and then later on. And then I also would say that when the book was published, I was somewhat worried for my daughter because
right.
she was 13 years old at that time. And I was thinking, okay, well, I didn't want her to feel she had to have an opinion about it. And I didn't want to actually have her dealing with it at all because it was grown-up issues. So what I did was I told her that I was going to publish a book and I was going to be in the media and so on. And I said, I don't want you to watch any of it or listen to it. And if people contact you and ask about this book, just say, well, it's my mom. She's a bit crazy. She has all these projects, and I guess the book is just one of them. And she did that. And so for the first couple of years after the book came out in Denmark, she never talked with anybody about it. And people respected that as well. And then when she got older, some of her friends thought that it was cool, and some of her friends' moms.
I think Pouline just dropped. We're going to try and get her back on here. Let's see if we can get her back on here. She just mistakenly dropped. So let's see. Folks, we're going to see. Oh, there she goes.
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, now I'm back again.
Yo, that's good. That's good. I was happy. I just wrote down your phone number. I was getting ready to dial you. I just wanted to jump in and say, so your daughter was a teenager. She was around 13.
Yeah.
So the question I was going to say is, or did you not? I was going to say, weren't you worried that she would pay the price for your endeavors? I mean, because at the age of 13, kids can be, preteens or teenagers can be pretty tough.
Sure. I was worried about it, and I also was thinking whether I should maybe publish the book under a synonym.
Yes.
And I was also considering not publishing the book at all. But then I was thinking, well, if I don't thread some new paths, then she might end up having the same love frustrations as I do. Because when I look back from when I was her age, I don't think a whole lot of things have changed the way I would have thought it would have changed. I still think that young people, at least here in Denmark, they when they get to be teenagers and they get to, be interested in the other sex or their own sex, whatever, they get experiences in drunk situations or in parties, or it's not very, how should I say, I don't think there's a whole lot of respect around it. It's still a little shabby and something people don't want to talk about. And,
okay.
So I've also always talked with her about sex whenever she needed to talk about it.
That's good. So my next question for you is, do you recommend this modern love model for women of all ages?
Yes. And at least here in Denmark, it is women of all ages who've taken it on. I just got an email from a woman who's 70 years old, and she just loved the book, and and she was going to use it as inspiration in her couple life. So you can use it directly, and you can also use it indirectly, because the more you can actually let yourself, thread new paths or try something else. Let's say you're stuck in the dating rut, or you're like really just not having a very well-functioning love life. Well, it's a good idea to get an inspiration and think things differently, because it frees your energy, it frees your spirit, and it also frees your attitude towards other people. You might be more accommodating, you might be more curious of going out with somebody that is not the normal type you normally go out with. It's very good to think about things in a different way.
So Pouline, you're married now, but I want to ask you, when you were going through this model, I mean, is it the fact that did you dislike monogamy?
No, I think everybody, when they're in love, are quite monogamous. Because when you're in love with another person, it's this special person that you want to be with. So I don't think that I think that's very much part of it. And I also live a monogamous relationship now. But I have been very happy about the fact that I have, with this man that I'm married to, Sting, I've been able to talk with him about these things right from the beginning. Because when you've had a 3-men model, there are many more things that you can actually bring up, or you bring them up. I have much more fun dates with guys, because it's possible to speak in a more uninhibited way and more tolerant way about these things. And the interesting thing was also, when I published my book, I was overwhelmed by how many people contacted me and wanted to tell about their experiences that were a little out of the ordinary or a lot out of the ordinary. Many people had experiences like that. And they asked me for lunch and coffee and so on, and some of them also wanted advice. And that's when I decided to set up my love coaching company, because I was like, there are so many people needing advice, and I have some experiences here that people can use.
So Pouline, I got to ask you, the most important question for me, and you might laugh, is can men use this model too and look for 3 women?
Yes. I had a friend of mine. He was very into my book and thought it was fun. And then he said, at some point in my life, I lived with 3 women. And I said, well, would you like to write a book about it? He said, yeah, I've actually, longed to write a book for years, and I've tried a couple of times. And so he ended up writing a book called 1 Man, 3 Women. But you know what? The way he defined the 3 roles was different, because he defined them as the sexy femme fatale for sex, the soulmate for sex, and the young wild at heart for sex. So, the sex aspect was as part of all 3 roles for him. And that, together with the experiences I had with men, has made me much more aware of how important sex is for men. It's also important for women, but I think it's in different manners. And I think, at least, it was a surprise for me that it was so important for men, because very few men were direct about it. I had to kind of pull it out of them how important it was. But then once they said, yes, it is really this important, then they felt much better about actually, saying, yes, this is important for me. So I also want to contribute. I also want to take initiative. I also want to, it was much better to actually be frank about it, because then you can use it as an active component in your relationship, instead of having it something that you are a little of, holding back or not actually standing by your desire. So that's a thing I definitely got out of the model. It's really good to stand by your desire, whatever it is.
I'm going to look into this book, One Men, 3 Women, because like you said, I want to find out from the author, okay, the sexual component is one thing, but what about, was there anything else I mean, because it from the description that you just provided, is like men just care about sex and that's it. There's nothing else. And I'd like to think there's something else, but I'm a man, and I kind of know what rules. My next
Yeah.
question for you. But,
Well, I have one more comment regarding this,
okay.
if you
Okay.
allow.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think that you can say that for women there are maybe a number of paths to love, and sex is one of them. Whereas for men there is one path to love, and it passes through sex. So I think for men there is also more than just sex. But I think sex is a really important component for men, and I think that's fine. It's we shouldn't be the same, and we shouldn't be similar to each other. It's okay to be different among genders and generations and so on.
So I noticed that you chose the roles of the philosopher, the lover, and the handyman. If you had to choose another role, what would that role be for a man to fill? Uh-oh, did I stump you?
Well, because, well, it touches upon an area that I have identified with many people who are frustrated with love, is that they expect far too much from a partner. They want all their needs fulfilled by one person. And in a way, it's not helping you, it's not helping your partner, it's not helping your relationship. It's much better to concentrate on the three most important areas and then to be able to compromise in the rest of the areas. Because, the more you kind of have expectations towards each other, the more you also risk, getting disappointed.
Well, that's fair.
So I can't really define a fourth area. But I would say that for other women, they may define these three roles differently. Let's say you really love taking long hikes. Well, then it would be a partner for that you may be looking for instead of the philosopher or instead of the handyman or whatever. It could also be somebody who's really into sports, or it could be somebody who is into cooking. Any kind of thing that is really important in your life and where you would like a match. That should be the way you define it.
Paul, we're speaking with Pouline Middleton, author of One Woman, Three Men. Pouline, I do have a question, and it's about the green-eyed monster. The green-eyed monster, we like to say, is jealousy. So how does someone deal with jealousy if they are dating more than one person?
Well, that was actually the most often reason for changes in the three positions. Because most of the men that signed up for my model, they wanted it to lead to sex at some point. They were willing to, that we had some exchanges before, and we had some talks, or they helped with practical stuff, but they wanted it to lead to that. And then when they found out that there was somebody else there, and they started comparing themselves in their own mind to whoever was having this position, because they never met each other. But of course, they knew of each other's existence. So I mean, it was difficult. And I've since made a lot of, the people I've coached in love, the green-eyed monster is there, and it's very much about strengthening your own base and grounding yourself in yourself, because the green-eyed monster is also a lot of imaginations going on and taking control of you, and it's not reality. It's quite seldom reality is like that. But we can get completely worked up about it if we don't kind of nip it in the bud, like nip it as early as possible and deal with it.
I got a question. What about the moral values? Like, do those matter in modern love in your model?
Well, I think the love life today is not as how should I say? It's not as following the traditions as it was maybe 20 years ago or 30 or 40 years ago. You know, there's so many things that you can define yourself today. So actually earlier on you could just follow the traditions and then everything would be all right. It's not so much possible today because traditions are changing, and you know, some of your friends may live in completely different manners, and people you meet live in different manners, and that means that you really need to ground yourself in your own values and to be able to look yourself in the mirror every day. So I think moral values are actually even more important today than maybe they have been before, because you don't get them by automatically from society. You need to work on it yourself and define what do you think is appropriate behavior.
Pauline, I got to ask you this question right here. After writing a book like this, how do you what topic would you approach for a follow-up book? Like, I mean, this is kind of like a game changer, and it's also a showstopper. So your follow-up, I would think, would have to be something just as provocative. What's in your queue, or what are some of your thoughts for, you know, what your next book that you're going to write, or is there a next book that you're going to write?
Well, there is, yes, there definitely is. I have a couple of different tracks that I can choose to follow, and I've made notes in both areas. One track is that I will leave the main character of this book, and I will start following her best friend. Her best friend is more sexually explorative. She's more daring. She's more uninhibited. So that can really be, you know, a more erotic novel, but also in the sense that, you know, let's try to redefine things. So that is, yeah, that's one track. The other track could be saying, okay, I will continue to follow my main character, and now that you know, she's not in the end, she doesn't have as many men as she does in the beginning. I don't want to give away too much.
Okay.
But you know, how will she live that with the experiences that she has gotten? You know, does it change the life that she's embarking upon when the book ends? And how does it change it? Because it changed it for me. You know, when I...
And it looks like we just dropped Miss Pouline Middleton again. I did have a follow-up question for her. Hopefully she can just dial right back in. She was discussing... The question I had for her is, how do you follow up a book like this, One Woman, Three Men? And hold on, she's back on. Hey, Pauline, there you go.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. It's like it gives us 10 minutes or so, and then it just
I know. So
yeah.
you were mentioning the following up, you know, the different tracks you can go. I did want to say, are you currently in the States right now, or are you in Denmark right now?
I'm in Denmark right now, and 1st of April I'll be in Los Angeles, and then I'll have a book tour of a month.
Wonderful. Are you coming to New York? Yes,
I am on the 18th of April and until the 29th.
Okay, definitely. Hey, I wanted to know if you could tell our listeners best ways of getting in contact with you via social media, your coaching, you know, that you also do, best ways to find out about everything about Pouline Middleton.
Yeah, well, I have a Twitter profile, which is called 1W3M, One Woman, Three Men. And then I have a website, which is called modernloveandsex.com. And on this modernloveandsex.com, I have, the more descriptions of my book, and I'm blogging there, and I also have a booking possibility for any coaching that people might be interested in. So modernloveandsex.com.
Perfect. Perfect. Pauline, want to give you a round of applause?
Ooh, thank you very much, Ted.
And I want to thank you for taking the time out tonight. And look forward to following your book tour. And definitely when you do it in New York, I will definitely show up one of those dates because I want to definitely get your autograph. And just the concept itself, game changing.
Great.
Definitely game changing. So I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, Ted. And I'll be in touch when I'm in New York.
Okay, thanks again.
Okay, thank you.
And that was Miss Pouline Middleton, author of One Woman, Three Men. Really happy to have her on the show. Really happy to have Rosalind Ross join us at the top of the hour, Pouline Middleton. Once again, Women's History Month. We will be back next week as we celebrate the rich heritage of women and all that they do. So with that, we're getting ready to close out. And we're going to close out with We Reminisce Over You.
I reminisce.